to our public education, it is that they purposely don't agree on what the large truths are. And therefore they can't really be responsible for teaching them. And the other problem is that it's only the new things that are taught and not the old things. Chesterton says that in most schools today, students have to be subjected to educational ideas that are younger than they are. And he also says that the government had less power over an individual when it could send him to be burned at the stake than it does now when it sends him to the public school. Compulsory education is a very, very new development in history. And when the state controls that important thing, that important aspect of the development of a child, when that is state controlled, that has given the state more influence over the individual than it has ever had in history. Chesterton says there are no uneducated people. Everybody's educated, only people are educated wrong. We're no longer teaching history, we're teaching hygiene. We're no longer teaching traditional ideals, but really the fashionable ideals of the governing class of Hudge and Gudge. And we're recruiting nothing but specialists rather than well-rounded and generally informed individuals. And so that we've come to rely on specialists as teachers. We've come to rely on specialists as the counselors and the technicians. And the only persons who seem to have nothing to do with the education of children are the parents. So he sums up, and he also talks about modern sex education, kind of sums up everything about that when he says, how can it be more important to teach a child how to avoid disease than how to value life? All right. Now we've talked about what's wrong with the world in terms of society and Hudge and Gudge and feminism, public education, how they all undermine the family. The other thing that they all undermine, and we are enemies of, in many ways, is the church. The way of the world and the way of the church are completely opposite. They are always going against each other. And when Chesterton became a Catholic, he said one of the reasons he became a Catholic was that it was the only thing that saves a man from the degrading slavery of being a child of his time. The church stands against fashions and fads that come and go. And as he once said, we don't need a church that moves with the world, we need a church that moves the world. So that sometimes means standing up and defending the truth. Because he says if you're loyal to anything, if you wish to preserve it, you have to recognize that it might have enemies. And you have to fight against those enemies and hope that those enemies will fail. But sometimes it just means having a good argument. And the purpose of an argument is differing in order to agree rather than agreeing to differ. Because agreeing to differ is simply the failure of an argument. And there have been times when the church has given in to the fads of the world. And when it's gone along with the world. And in those cases, the church has failed. He says there have been times when the church has been wedded to the world, but then it finds itself widowed by the world. Now, there are some people that might argue that the thing that's really wrong with the world is